Hear me, see me? Perfect! Hello, friends! It is Allison from Wonderlass.com. Happy Monday. Happy first day of the week. I hope you are busy kicking some butt. Taking names as always. It is a nice 50-something degrees here in Kansas City. The sun is shining. I'm going to call it a good day, even though the birds woke me up at like 5 a.m. It's totally fine. The birds were out enjoying the weather. I wanted to pop on today to share some of the biggest mistakes that I've made when it comes to growing my online business. And when I say mistakes, just picture me putting air quotes around. Unless you're watching, you could see me actually doing air quotes. But when I say mistakes, I'm putting air quotes because all mistakes really are just learning opportunities. If you are an entrepreneur or anyone going through life, you're going to be trying new things, and therefore you're going to be making a shiz ton of mistakes. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to start a business, you weren't born knowing how to do that. And so you're going to have to be constantly doing new things, and therefore you're going to be making a lot of mistakes. And I love the quote that Albert Einstein said, of a person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new. And that's so true. So I have made a lot of juicy mistakes over the years that were valuable learning opportunities, but they also took a lot of time for me to learn. And so my goal with this is to share some of these mistakes to help you see maybe if you're kind of doing the same thing, or maybe to help you get over the hump a little faster. I am definitely a tortoise in the hare race. I'm like a slow learner. Sometimes it's like I have to see the same thing like 20 times in order for it to like really sink in. So in this episode, I wanna share, I think I have 6 big ol' mistakes in air quotes that I want to share with you, and I want to share the lessons too. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm just going to dive right in to the mistakes that I've made, especially in the last, I don't know, 5 years. What year are we in right now? This is the last like 5-6 years. So I'm going to share the biggest doozies. So mistake number 1 that I made as I was trying to grow my online business is that I was way too broad. When I first started and I put up my website and I was blogging and trying to kind of figure out my place in this online world, I was covering so many different topics. I was covering wedding photography, I was writing business posts, I was posting about my storm chasing adventures, I had DIY posts, I had dating advice, which is really silly, like date ideas, not dating advice. I had just a whole slew of things. And the issue with that is that the people who were coming to my website for, say, storm chasing couldn't care less about the other stuff. And the people who were coming to my site for wedding photography couldn't care less about the DIY. And the people who were coming to my site for business advice, they didn't care about one thing or another. And so because I was spreading myself too thin, I wasn't really attracting any one person. Plus I was confusing people, and I showed up that way like 4 or 5 times a week. I would come on and blog and do things and try to grow my business. But despite years of consistent effort, I never really gained traction. I really never had very big of a following other than friends and family because it was just way too confusing. And because I was so broad, I really had no good marketing strategy. I really didn't know who my dream customer was because I was kind of just trying to appeal to everyone. And so the lesson I learned from that is that it is so much easier to gain traction if you get really specific with what you do and who you help. Just narrowing it down. And if you're multi-passionate, I know this can be hard. I know that most of us are multi-passionate, and that was the thing. I was trying to do all of my passions all in the same place. But if you really want to gain traction, you really want to attract the right people, if you want to just grow your business faster, you've got to narrow it down. That doesn't mean that you can't expand later into more interests, but trying to be an expert in the broad category is very, very difficult. So I gradually cut out all of the other things. I just made a choice in 2015, I think it was, that I was going to go all in with one thing. And that was, for me, it was business, because that's where my passion really was. And so I literally went through all of my blog posts, and I'm saying I had a ton of blog posts, like hundreds, and I archived them all. So I just unpublished them all. It was very painful, but I was like, you know what, this is confusing. And so, but as soon as I took out the rest of the stuff from my site and I got really specific with what it was I was trying to help people with and what it was that I was doing and who I was trying to attract, I gained traction like 20 bazillion times faster. So that was mistake number one. And I stayed there for about 4 years, very, very long time. The next big mistake that I made as I was trying to grow my online business was that I created way too many offers when I first started creating paid offers. I think the first year that I started creating and selling online courses, I created 6 different courses in a year. That is a crap ton. If you've ever created an online course and you know how much work it is, I was literally busting my buns, working 12+ hour days every day, frantically just in a dazed passion because I was so excited, just creating as many courses as possible. And the problem though with this was that A, I was running myself into the ground, but B, I was not giving myself any time to properly go over each course that I launched, to test it, to tweak it, and then to relaunch it, which is really where all the momentum comes from. Because I created 6 different courses, I was essentially, oh, let me create one course, put it out there, awesome, what else can I create? Ooh, I'm gonna create course number 2, okay, put it out there, awesome, okay, course number 3. So I wasn't giving myself enough time or energy to focus on doing one course really well. And then by the end of the year, I had 6 different courses that I then needed to sell and market. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, sometimes to even just market one course. And so if I could get in a time machine and go back to that first year, I would have said, Allison, slow the heck down, create one course, launch it, and then after you launch it, test it, see what people think, get feedback, tweak it based on the feedback, and then relaunch it, and then relaunch it again. And then once you have momentum from your first course, and once you've got systems in place for marketing that course, then move on to thing number 2. That is literally what I would tell myself, and that's what I encourage others who are just getting started to do, because I'm telling you, the more things you create, the more that you are then also having to put the time into marketing and things like that. And the beauty and the momentum really does come from relaunching. There are so many things that I can think of, both for myself and other people that I know, where when they initially launched something, you could call it a, air quotes, flop, because it hardly got any traction, maybe hardly any people bought, but then they didn't see that as a sign to like that it was a bad course. They just took it, they refined it, they got feedback on it, and then they launched it again, and then they got more people in it, and then they refined it, and they tested it, and they tweaked it again, and then they relaunched it a 3rd time. And that's really where all of that momentum comes from. And because I created way too many things, there was no way that I relaunched any of that the first year. And that's really where the momentum comes from. So that was my big mistake number 2. The next mistake that I made, I think this is number 3, was, speaking of launching, not having a launch plan. I've shared the story a few times of when I first created my first paid course. I was so excited that I really didn't put any thought as to how I was going to let my audience know about it, how I was really going to promote it. And so I went into this launch and I created the course and I emailed my list. At the time, it was like 8,000-ish people on it. And I made one sale of $179, and I was totally crestfallen, and I was totally beating myself up over it because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I suck. Maybe my course sucks. Maybe people don't like me. Maybe this is what I'm not supposed to be doing. But then I realized about a day later, after throwing myself a pity party on the couch, I didn't do anything to launch it. I had zero plan. I literally threw an email out to my list, maybe 2 emails. I think I only actually did 1. And so the lesson from that is you need to plan out your launches when you're launching something. You don't have to go totally over the top. I know a lot of times nowadays people are like overblowing their launches, and then for those who are just getting started, it's really overwhelming. So you don't have to do this giant launch where it's got all the bells and whistles. You can totally do it very simple and a very easy launch, but it still requires some preparation and planning. And so now, if I'm going to launch something, which I actually haven't done a live launch in quite some time because I focus on evergreen stuff for the most part now, but if I do a launch, I give myself 3 months to plan. So I plan out the launch 3 months in advance. I mark it on the calendar generally at the beginning of the year, and then I start planning it out 3 months in advance. And that time gives me so much preparation time that it feels easy, it feels relaxed, I'm prepared, I can create all of the stuff that I need ahead of time, and I'm also going to get way better results. And so definitely take the time to plan your launches if you want to launch with a bang, and if you don't want to be a hot frazzle pants trying to do everything at the last minute like I did. And so the lesson that I learned from that is, oh man, I need to plan my launch. And then I went and took that lesson and I planned out my next launch, and I made $10,000 on the next launch. And the launch before that was $179. So that lesson went a long way. The next mistake that I have made in growing my online business is not knowing my numbers. How many of you if you are listening right now, tell me honestly, do you know your numbers? Do you know what numbers I'm referring to? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I personally, when I first started, knew there was something with numbers that I should probably know, but I am not a numbers person. I don't like anything to do with like spreadsheets or anything like that. Math, like that's not my thing at all. And so for the first couple of years, I pretty much just turned a blind eye. I was like, okay, like people keep talking about numbers, but I'm fine. Like I'm gonna figure it out. You know, I'll just make sure that I'm growing still. Like I don't actually need to know my numbers. And then one day I was like, okay, I really do need to know my numbers, because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know what's working and you don't know what's not working. If you are just going blindly without knowing your numbers, you're essentially driving your business blind. So like, how are you going to know what marketing efforts are working if you don't know your numbers? How are you going to know how much you can spend on paid advertising without breaking the bank if you don't know your numbers? How are you going to know like what business expenses are worth it for your business if you don't know the numbers? And so I went a long, embarrassing long time without knowing my numbers. And so that was my big mistake, number 4. So you really got to just sit down, rip it off like a Band-Aid, and get really clear on your numbers. What are your conversion rates for all of your most important things? This is something that I talk about in my course, The 5-Day Profit Plan. I'm like, we go over each and every single number that you need to be covering in your business. And then the beauty is, when you know your numbers, no matter how good or bad they are, then you can, once you know what they are, then you have something to work from, and then you can see where you're at, and then you can improve those things. And so now I look at my business and the numbers as one big game. I literally pretend I'm like a mad scientist, and I go through my numbers every month, and I'm like, oh, okay, like what's working here, what's not working, what could be improved, what tweaks could I make to maybe improve them for the next month. And now the funny part is I actually really enjoy it. I geek out now about the numbers because it's so fascinating to me when I know my numbers and I make a tweak. It's really interesting to me to see like what works and what doesn't. And so that's like a big thing. And then you start growing so much faster because you're no longer driving blind. You know your numbers, you know which ones need to be tweaked, and then you can start improving those. But if you don't know them, then there's nothing that you can do, and you're not going to know what needs fixing if you don't even know the number thing. So that was number 4. The mistake number 5 that I made as I was trying to grow my online business is not creating any genuine urgency in my sales funnels. So if you know my business, I focus on primarily passive income from evergreen products. So meaning that the product is available at all times. So it's evergreen, and that's kind of, and I focus on passive income. So I wanted my business, when I was first starting, I knew that I didn't want to rely on trading dollars for hours or having to be there all the time for my business. I wanted my business to be able to grow and be sustainable and to bring in income when I wasn't working. If I had to go to the hospital for a month then I wanted to still be able to bring in income. Or if there was some type of emergency, or if I wanted to go travel, then I wanted to have that passive income coming in. And so that's what I went in with the mindset of when I was starting my business. Is like, okay, I want my business to run on passive income, but it took me a long time to get that consistent passive income coming in because I wasn't giving people urgency in my sales funnels. Urgency is key. I would basically be like leading people, you know, sales funnel is just free content that leads to your paid content. I had no reason for people to move their butts. And if people don't have a genuine reason of why they actually need to take action, then they will procrastinate indefinitely. Even if they want your thing, if you don't give them a genuine reason of why they should get it now or within this amount of time that you set, then they will put it off indefinitely. And then when they put it off, they'll either forget about it or, you know, whatever reason. And so I had all of these things in place to sell my evergreen courses, but I didn't have any urgency. So people would consume the content, they would go through my sales funnel, and then at the end, there was no reason for them to buy right then. And so they wouldn't. And so I had a lot of hard times that I went through, months where I was like, what the heck? Like, why aren't people buying? And I kept seeing all these things, you know, online. People always, you know, made it sound so easy. Like, just set up this one funnel and you're going to get hundreds of people every month and every week. And I was like, okay, this is going to be easy. And then I'm like, what the heck? It's not easy. And like, no one's buying. And so the key for me was when I added genuine urgency to my funnels. And I do that with Deadline Funnel. I recommend it to everyone who wants to sell evergreen offerings to their audience. Deadline Funnel is essentially genuine. You can set, and you can even use these for live promotions, but they're awesome for evergreen. You essentially set for every person who enrolls into your sales funnel, it creates a deadline for them, a genuine deadline of when the offer expires. And you can make the offer whatever you want, whether it's a discount, an extra bonus, whatever. If they buy within that time frame, they're going to get that special incentive. And so that was a game changer for me when I added that. It was like that paid for itself within the first 24 hours. So if you are trying to do evergreen passive income in your business, you have to give people a genuine reason to take action. And then let's see, what are we on? Number 6? All right, the 6th lesson or mistake that I made in my online business was attaching myself to the results. I put so much pressure on myself to reach the goals and to achieve the results that I wanted, and I would get so attached to it that I would feel like absolute crap every single time that I didn't hit those goals. I would set like a launch goal or a promotion goal or, you know, a goal for my sales funnel, and then I would put so much attachment onto that and to what reaching that meant, that if I didn't reach it, I would feel like crap, and that would affect me for days or even weeks. I mean, I would keep going, but mentally inside, I was crying and I was unhappy, and I would be so unhappy with myself. And because I would be so upset, sometimes it would be hard for me to see the lesson that was in there, because every mistake is a lesson. But I would be so beat up about it. Oh, I'm a failure. Like, what the heck? Like, everyone makes this look so easy. I suck. I'd be so attached to it that I would just constantly be beating myself up. And I set a lot of goals, and a lot of times I don't reach those goals, or, you know, but that's why you set goals. You continually set more. But the second I decided to just stop attaching myself to those goals, my business got so much easier, so much lighter, so much better. And that was in the summer, I want to say, of 2017. So the past year and a half. But for a very long time, for years, I would place so much attachment on each of those goals. And then I would make up all of these stories of what it meant if I hit that goal, or what it meant if I didn't hit that goal. Like, if I hit that goal, that means I'm finally successful. Or if I hit that goal, that means I can finally be happy. Or if I hit that goal, that means I'm finally worthy to like teach business. Or if I didn't hit that goal, I'd be like, oh, well, I guess that means maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Or I guess that means this is going to be really hard. And I guess that means I'm never going to have a launch where I hit my numbers. And so that is just BS. I stopped making up stories. I stopped making the results mean anything and going back to like when I was talking about knowing my numbers, now I just see it all as a game. I set goals. I set a lot of goals. I set big goals and I miss them half the time. That's totally fine. I don't put any attachment on it. I know I'm going to reach my goals eventually if I don't hit it the first time or the 5th time or the 10th time, but I no longer make myself feel like absolute crap when I don't hit them. And that has been an absolute game changer in how my business runs and how I feel. And of course, the better I feel, the better my business runs. So those are the six of the mistakes. Of course, I've made like a bazillion more. Maybe I'll have to do like a part 2 episode. So those are 6 mistakes, 6 lessons. I hope you found them valuable. I would love to know if you have made any of these, if you are making any of these, or if you have made a different mistake, air quotes, and you've learned something from it. I would love for you to share what that was in the comments or somewhere. Just share with me one mistake and lesson that you've made in your business. Also, speaking of lessons, if you haven't grabbed it yet, I created a free gift for anyone who leaves me a review on iTunes. If you're genuinely enjoying this podcast, I created a 24-page PDF of my top 10 business lessons, and I'm just emailing that to anyone who leaves me a review. So like you don't even have to get on my list. You just leave me a review on iTunes, screenshot your review, and then you email it to my team and I at customersuccess@wonderlast.com, and then we email you the link. But that contains even more juicy lessons and flops and golden nuggets that I have learned, and I would love to hear from you about what you have learned. But that is it for today. Trying to keep these episodes short and actionable. Sometimes it's really hard because I like to talk and I get really excited. I want to go on tangents, but we are keeping these short and actionable. So with that, oh yeah, actionable. This is the Take Imperfect Action podcast. I almost forgot to share with you your action step to take. So you have one action step that I want you to take today. You can do it in 10 minutes or less, but I want you to go through the list of 6 mistakes that I just covered, and I want you to ask yourself if you're currently making any of them. And if you are, it's totally fine, but go through the list, ask yourself if you're currently making any of them, and if so, I want you to write down one step that you could take this week to kind of move past that, to turn it into an opportunity, turn what's currently maybe a little bit of a mistake into a valuable thing to help you grow. So that's your action step, short and sweet. And that is it for today. I am so glad that you've chosen to listen. Thank you so much. Stay in touch. Let me know what mistakes that you've made and some of the lessons that you've learned. I would love to hear from you. Plus, others will see, if you leave a comment, others will be able to see what you've left and hopefully learn from that too. Let's just all learn together, all right? Let's learn together. Let's share all of our mistakes and flops and just celebrate those. Those are half the fun. It's all a big game. All right, well, that is it for today. Have a wonderful, wonderful Monday, and I will see you very, very soon. Okay, that's the end. And